Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on our comic book creator interviews, including our monthly Chichester chats with comic book legend DG Chichester, superhero movie brackets in our search for the worst comic book movie of all time, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/CapesandLunatics. Hope to see you there.
In a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, sometimes you need a good lawyer. And that lawyer is Jennifer Walters, attorney at law. Avast me hearties and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I be your Captain Charlie, the Professor Esser. And with me, as always, is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz. Tonight we are talking She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Season 1, Episode 9. Whose show is this? Jen finds herself in trouble with the law and struggles to pick up the pieces of her life. Kat Coiro is our director. Jessica Gao and gets our created by. She also gets a written by credit this episode. John Buscema, of course, created the She-Hulk along with Stan Lee. Jack Kirby and Stan Lee created the Hulk. Hardest working people in show business this week, Mozz. Our Dana Schwartz and Cody Ziegler are hard-working staff writers. They're on staff. They're there every day, whether they wrote something or not. We have got a grand adventure today for us because She-Hulk got herself arrested. What did you think?
Before that, can we talk about that brilliant, glorious opening sequence?
Oh, yes.
My word, that was amazing. It was such just like putting their foot on the ground, like, this is who we are. You know, I don't know. A lot of people wanted something different, but like, hey, and I didn't even catch like the thematic sort of like similarities between that and old Hulk show. But I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. If they had like a serialized, thing that just went on and every week she encountered some new sort of problems, I'd be so down for that. That sounds like a great idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I've read some reviews of this as well, which is that this is the first MCU product that sees itself as a TV show first and not a 3-hour movie or a 6-hour movie broken up into chapters. And that is really meant to be, no, this is a story, and that may even be why it goes for 9 episodes. Because it is literally just this idea is like, no, there's just every episode is a new thing, and this is how you maintain a through line of an episode. But every adventure has its own beginning, middle, and end for that adventure. They may tie into something larger, they may not. You know, we still don't know Titania's deal. Right. Which I think is a really important and powerful point in this. That whatever Titania's deal is, that was never made a central theme. It was an important part. We all knew we had to have Titania. But, you know, quite frankly, even in Titania's reality, her origin it's always been very Deus Ex Machina. It has always been, you know, Skeeter McFerrin gets powers given to her, and now she can be the strong one. Now she can be the bully. And, you know, if you're someone that's been bullied a lot, nothing feels better than to bully right back sometimes. You know, it's not good. It's not the right choice. It's not the heroic choice, but that is the origin of the supervillain. And so I do think that is actually a very powerful and telling point about her story. But in this moment, we get that classic 1970s Gamma Cast Hulk opening, with a really, really fantastic She-Hulk, which is literally a man in a dress, which, yeah, the actual actor who plays the Savage She-Hulk. Because I actually thought they might have just superimposed Jen's face over.
Either that, or they could have found like a powerlifting lady.
Oh no! Well, they have a powerlifting lady, but she still looks like a lady. That was
what I'm saying. The person playing She-Hulk in the 1970s version.
Well, yeah. Well, that would have been what's her name? She was the scientist in Rocky 3, I think. No, Rocky 4. The Russian scientist. I'm blanking on her name. She was in Flavor of Love. Well, she was like because they were in the Surreal Life with Flavor Flav, and they sort of had a relationship thing, a TV relationship. Why am I blanking on her name? Tall blonde lady. But yes, she was proposed for the role. She would have been fantastic, and she would have looked like the She-Hulk that you get in the comics. And to be fair, they have a very strapped woman who is the stunt double and the physical presentation of She-Hulk that is in the show, but that's not the same as the actor who's playing the Savage She-Hulk in this, where they really go for the full musculature. And that is Devon Lewis. He actually has a very pretty face. I'll give him that much too.
They did get a dude to do it.
Yes, Devon Lewis is credited as the Savage She-Hulk.
That's hilarious.
Basically, when you see there's even a nice little photo of him on the thing.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me show you.
Yeah.
Go.
Yes. So, but Devon Lewis, I think he did a great job in the role, and quite frankly, I appreciated their attention to detail in this. The 1970s computers, which people point out it's very similar to the tech in Loki. I don't know if that's intentional or not. I don't think it is. I think it's just that's what computers look like in the 1970s. You know,
right.
But yes, it was. I really enjoyed it. Interestingly enough, though, in like the 2-shot with her and Bruce is in the Bill Bixby role, and they have her in the Jack McGee role. So the plaid jacket, that's the Jack McGee signature.
Interesting.
It is all very interesting, but I think it worked out really well, and it's neat for that to be her dream sequence in the opening end. I can't imagine. I love it. It's a great shout out to those who were fans of the old school. And it was quite delightful.
I wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah. Moving right along. She wakes up, she's in the cell that is designed for holding hope
and super beings
with toilet, because that is important. That's how you know you're in a Marvel universe, is we have toilets in the Marvel universe. Because our heroes and villains poop. And she wakes up on the floor because that's what they give you, because they don't want you having anything you can really utilize as a weapon. And we find out that basically, she lost her cool. And when you're a Hulk and you lose your cool, that's actually a real problem. And it's an honest problem to say, you caused a lot of property damage. Even when she didn't lose her cool, when she was fighting, Matt Murdock, that was a lot of damage for someone to cause for any reason, and yes, the guy dressed like the devil wasn't necessarily the hero in that story. He's trying to attack another super villain. It's a complex story, but the idea is that there is a lot of property damage, a lot of things, and this is why there does exist a damage control, because, that was someone's car she threw. And, that thing, that was someone's, those TVs.
And how haphazardly she just left a note like, yeah, I'll cover it, whatever, right? But when she loses her job, she, has to move back in with the parents. She just can't afford immediately, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
so where was she getting all this money to throw around? And just
actually, I think she could have afforded her apartment. It was just that she couldn't afford she was alone and trapped by paparazzi.
I get it. That's least true. They did make that point. Yeah.
Yeah. At least if she was home, then first off, her dad said to turn the hose on him, which quite frankly is great. And he says, I don't care if there's a drought. I got water pressure for days, And I have his little Hulk moment. It's like, get off my lawn, kids. So I appreciate that. And,
she does cause a lot of damage, and
exactly
she needs to get a handle on her powers. And it's not a bad thing for her to be where she is right now, because maybe she is a real problem.
Yeah, and
you should have been listening to Bruce from the beginning. It's like, hey, you got to channel this stuff. I know you're good at managing it, yeah, but stuffing it down and not addressing is not the same as managing it. Sometimes,
Well, actually, I think that there's a deeper aspect of this, because as soon as she gets the powers, she says, well, great, give me an inhibitor so that I don't have this as a problem. And he's like, it's not that easy. And that's not, that's not the fix you think it is, because this is still something you have to, and that is really what it is. It is about coming into the balance and dealing with it, that the inhibitors, as we see, don't really work that well. All you need is to put it on Princess Silk Feathers, and you can cause some trouble with the system. So it doesn't really do what you want it to do, and it also it breaks too easily. It can be overcome, and that is the problem. But I do like the fact that in this, Blonsky actually is really somewhat reformed, He may be playing fast and loose, and he may say, I'm an abomination, what are you going to do about it? But he is not trying to cause problems.
Yeah, maybe he thought he really could help those misguided people.
You know what? He probably did, because for what it's worth, you see the Wrecker. We all thought the Wrecker had to be the bad guy. In this moment, he is actually completely straight with her, and completely.
Who's the Wrecker?
The big guy with the hair. Remember when he walks in?
Oh, yeah. He's truly reformed as well. He actually did get some good spiritual help in this retreat.
Yeah, exactly. And this is this is something I've said, and this is like, if you actually study a lot of, and not that I'm saying I've studied it, but if you actually look at the history, like the men's movement, which is now scary and toxic, started out with this very positive idea of, men need to reconnect with their own spiritualness,
Yeah,
men have been told to shut themselves out. That doesn't
represent the whole of it. Obviously, the loudest morons are always going to get the most attention.
Well, yeah, but you see that, but this is the thing. So, like, like, full disclosure, I did a lot of pagan stuff when I was a kid, and in high school. Nice. I was a witch, and you go on your little retreats, and you talk about, the balance between, the masculine and feminine energy, the horned god, the protector, Bambi's dad in Bambi, the king of the forest. And this is a character that is really meant to be at the start of this reconnecting with things in this movement, in this spiritual movement of respecting who you are as a man and what it means to be a good man. Because too many men it was originally created to be a way to fight toxic masculinity, and then it becomes usurped by toxic masculinity, because at the end of the day, people don't want to be good. Well, they want to be powerful.
It's just
some people
are easily corruptible when the environment around it is conducive to that.
Exactly. And especially if you want to create a legend of, women, right? Yeah.
A bunch of kindergartners. That's all they were. A bunch of like kindergartners in adult bodies.
And that is the thing. And of course, that is, Jen, she comes to the retreat because she needs a place to get away from it all. Yeah. And, tries to, because she needs to talk to someone who's been through this, literally. And there are two people who have. That is Blonsky and that is the Hulk. The Hulk.
And the last time she went there, she didn't want to end up speaking, but she did end up sharing. And it was very therapeutic and cathartic for her. She's like, man, I could use a little bit more of that right now.
Exactly. And, and I think that is the positive. And that's the thing. Like, anyone who wants to say, oh, men bad, that's the moral. It's like, no, actually, there were several really positive male examples in this about people just not being afraid all the time. And that once you're not afraid, and you can deal with who you are and the emotions you feel, which are valid. But, maybe you have to ask, are you mad at the right people? As the old saying goes, well, yeah, or any way that you want to structure it.
I think that's the way it always comes down to is like, what are you mad at yourself about?
Yeah. Well, or even, is someone telling you to be mad at someone who really hasn't hurt you? And you can get this into a lot of things. And this is how these organizations get corrupted is they say, well, as they say, it's the bears, it's the immigrants, it's the whatever you need,
That's funny.
Yeah, well, it's a Simpsons reference because when they were mad at the bears, you got to get rid of the bears. Says, well, the problem wasn't the bears, it's the immigrants. And Mozz says, I know it was the immigrants. Even when it was the bears, I knew it was the immigrants. So yeah, this idea to manipulate people into that perspective, it exists. And,
the problem is it's like they're causing you to aim your critiques where it doesn't belong. And then if you keep doing that, it's an ever spinning wheel where you're never going to get any further.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because
and
if you're trying to fix the wrong problem, the problem's never going to get fixed.
Exactly. Within this story, obviously we get to our big fight. Because, the Wrecker, and again, now this is maybe even a thing where the Wrecker is again playing his cards real close to the vest. He says, oh, he has an event he's doing in the main lodge. Now, is that because he is trying to get her there?
Also, but by that point in the story, so much is like, yeah, maybe, because like it all gets sort of like tracked back to some unknown point. So it's like you don't know what really to expect. What is tongue in cheek at this point, or what is real? And I think that's kind of interesting and kind of cool.
Yeah, because we do see that one of his crew members is in there because we see the guy with the hard hat.
Oh,
yes.
So, I mean, like I also think like much as Abomination didn't see the malice in hosting these people, right? They saw it as an opportunity. So to him, even he didn't think he had anything to hide. He said, "Oh, okay, they're just So it's like I think it was a pure intention, not a deceptive sort of like intention."
And and to be fair, they paid extra, so he puts on the costume, which is what Bruce, not Bruce Wayne, which is what Adam West used to say. Says, I'll show up if people need an event, and if you pay extra, then I put on the costume. But you have to pay extra for me to put on the dang costume.
Fair.
Because he's taking a risk when he does it. But, and as he says, when Jen does confront him about that, he says, look, there's nothing nefarious here. I just want the money, which is a classic capitalistic justification, but he's not wrong. It's like, I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm not going to go smash anything. I just want to get paid.
Yeah.
I still pay taxes on this retreat,
Yeah, and don't worry, you're gonna get your cut too. Everybody, relax.
Yeah, relax. I got the retainer. Don't worry. But this is, I think, the idea here is that he is definitely just trying to be positive. And when Hulk Todd shows up, because this is, I do love the irony of the joke. Says no one just handed me these powers, as someone literally hands him the powers. You know, he said, I worked, and even when he says he worked for it, he says, my people did it, which means he didn't work for it. He had someone do the work for him.
Right.
I do think it would have been funnier if it didn't work, you know, or it like made him into, you know, sort of the, you know, it reveals who you truly are deep inside, and it turns him into
like a golem type creature. You know?
You know, and you could still be like super strong or super smart, but you would be that golem. You would be like the Grey Gargoyle. Oh, that would have been a perfect way to introduce the Grey Gargoyle, who is actually not really a supervillain, although he kind of is. He was just a Russian scientist who I think manipulates the Hulk to get his powers, but of course for him it turns him into a super genius. This was like the first time they did the super genius Hulk character. So that would have been cool. That would have been a very cool character to make into the Great Gargoyle. And yeah, but you know, he does die at the end of that because of course, you know, gamma radiation. He got the mutation, but he says, but I'm still going to die. And I also realize, because now with my super intellect, I know I was wrong. Yeah. You know, that would have actually been a very cool outcome for Todd. Maybe we'll revisit that later, you know, where he does get to be the super intellect, but he also just becomes the being that he was, just the little small man. But as it is, he tries to fight. And of course, Blonsky heroically picks up Jen and gets her out of the way. Because if nothing else, he knows she still has her inhibitor on. She likely can't change back. Although interesting, she can still break the fourth wall, even without her powers, which shows that, however it's inhibiting her, it's not inhibiting her as well as it could.
Right, but we're breaking not even the fourth wall. We're breaking, like, you know, it's weird. It's like I love this ending because it's sort of like Stephen King meets Blazing Saddles. Right?
Yes.
You know, like Stephen King he loves to put himself in all his movies. And in the Dark Tower series, the characters actually step out and meet him, the writer, the god of the whole story, whatever. But it's like that kind of concept. And they're meeting Kevin. And it's so exciting. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to pull the Stephen King thing, but it goes a different route. It was still really cool, but it reminded me the end of Blazing Saddles, where the whole scene breaks apart and all of a sudden they're on the set of the studio chasing other movie productions out. It's just such nonsense. Just saying, hey, don't take any of this seriously. We're just trying to have a good time. You know, and over again with the show, they've given us moments saying, hey, just you can sit there and be mad if you want. We're having a good time. If you want to have a good time, let's come on over, you know?
Well, yeah. And to be fair, this is a reality of Marvel Comics. And this is one of the things I say, the best part about this is that now everything in the MCU is suspect about its canonicity. The same way it is in the comic books. Because in the comics, everything is canon, but nothing is canon. Because you can introduce something in one story and then you can revisit it and you're going to remember the story differently. You're going to represent the story a little bit differently than you did the last time. And actually, I want to say it's John Byrne who is famous for this, because I think he's the guy who both wrote he did write the She-Hulk stories as well. So this is Byrne's fingerprints are all over this. But the idea is there's an episode that he writes where Lockjaw is revealed to be one of the Inhuman royal family, because Quicksilver was going to put his daughter, who was frighteningly, you know, diagnosed with being just a normal human. And he says, I'll expose her to the Terrigen Mist. That's going to make her give her powers. And anything is better than just being a human. And Lockjaw says, anything is better. And they look at Lockjaw, and everyone looks at Lockjaw because he never speaks. And Lockjaw is a big dog.
Oh.
And he says, listen, it's hard for me to talk, but I just want you to know it's a crapshoot when you get powers, and anything can happen. And you can say anything is better than being human. Not necessarily, you know, something to think about. And that's this whole thing. Now, later they retconned it that no, actually, that was a joke that they pulled on Quicksilver to make him think that Lockjaw was talking, but Lockjaw doesn't talk. He's just a dog.
Or
So,
Lockjaw used to be a human. He's like, yeah, I tried to do that. Now I can only, make love to dogs.
yeah, or well, I mean, honestly, it's the MCU. You don't want to assume what people make love to.
Fair enough.
You know? Not for nothing, Volcana and the Molecule Man were more than happy.
I'll put it this way. Yeah. I used to be a man. I tried to get powers, and now only dogs will make love to me.
Well, but the idea is, and it's not even that. It's actually just that Lockjaw is objectively a very powerful character. Can track anyone across multiple dimensions, can teleport, and all this stuff, is nigh invulnerable, but also can't speak, can't communicate, lives his life in a very restrained situation, and you can compare that to Black Bolt, who can never speak. What?
Can he sign somehow? But he has paws, I guess. He can't really.
Yeah, he has paws. He can't really sign even. So, he has to do it all with just sort of, body language. And, and I guess if you knew him and you get the idea that people who know him, who know Lockjaw, can, similar to the way when you're around Groot enough, you sort of pick it up. You understand the inflections that you can understand.
Like my dog lets me know when he's thirsty or when he's hungry, and I know just by the way he's looking at me,
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And so that's a reality, But anyway, in this moment, where were we? So everyone breaks in. The Hulk literally falls from the sky. Which is, why he goes to fight Blonsky, because he thinks Blonsky's attacking his cousin. And I love the fact that Blonsky's like, no, you don't understand. Classic superheroic misunderstanding to cause a fight. So, I do appreciate that. And, for what it's worth, it also gives me hope that someday we are going to get that scene, of the Hulk and the Abomination running through, the ocean. As the song "People Let Me Tell You About My Best Friend" plays in the background.
Can we make the Hulk a little bit bigger? I didn't like seeing Hulk so tiny compared to Abomination. I'm tired of a weak Hulk.
Well, he's not a weak. You're sounding like the guys from the. You're saying,
Hulk used to be like a Hulk. You can't have a Hulk that's not hulking. You can't have someone out Hulk.
Well, you can, and to be fair, Abomination I think was always taller than the Hulk.
Yeah, I know, but to that level, it just seemed like,
Well, and here's what I will say. First off, not necessarily, but also you have to remember this is a different Hulk than other Hulks.
Yeah.
This is Professor Hulk, which is specifically not a hulking Hulk.
Yeah. I'm just saying I'm tired of Professor Hulk. I want a hulky Hulk back.
You want a hulky Hulk back, and that's fair. But and we're probably going to be getting that based on what we get at the end of this.
Man, I hope so.
Although we may explore a lot more about everything and what it means to be a Hulk, what it means to have rage, legitimate rage, and even revisiting the history of other characters.
I think there was something to the magic of the Hulk about its unbridledness, right? You put a saddle on it and, it's not a bucking bronco no more.
Well, although, a bucking bronco is literally a bronco they put a saddle on who doesn't want to have a saddle.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. But that's the identity of the Hulk, like you got to tame him and you can't. And now he's all like this tame little.
But it's also, he doesn't want to be that, Why is he here? The answer is why is he here to perform for you? As She-Hulk asks
because it's a movie. They're called the
I know, but the thing
is, at least we can agree that it's not as entertaining as before. He should be there to entertain me, and he's not doing as good a job as a Hulk could be.
Oh, well, it depends on what he's supposed to be entertaining you as. So that's the thing. It's like you say, are you not entertained?
Yeah. My response to that right now is
no. Yeah, you're not entertained. You want someone punching someone, and that's fine.
There's enough people thinking and feeling and talking. Like the Hulk was supposed to be like a departure from that. Like, it's like if they made an action movie and, you got to progress the dialogue and progress the plot and whatnot. But if they keep debasing the action sequences, then it's no longer an action movie.
Well, no. And this isn't an action movie.
No. But the Hulk is an action movie. Like the character of the Hulk is supposed to be the set piece action guy.
And we will get that in that Hulk movie.
I hope
and
so.
That's the thing. And well, that's the thing, because the whole idea here, and this is the idea behind, the Professor Hulk character in and of itself is just another personality.
Yeah.
And that there is a Bruce personality, because not for what it's worth, there is even a shift in the character between when he is Mark Ruffalo Hulk, or when he is Mark Ruffalo, and when he becomes Professor Hulk. Because Mark Ruffalo put himself back in that human form and was enjoying being human. He had his inhibitor. He maybe didn't even want to go back to being Professor Hulk, even though he could. Then as soon as he gets to be Professor Hulk again and his arm is healed, he doesn't go back. He doesn't go back to just being Bruce Banner again because the power is too addictive.
Or it seems like he has responsibilities to attend to somewhere.
That's arguably a point too. That is absolutely a point too, that he has things he has to do. And, so maybe if we get back to it, we'll see him using that inhibitor to tune back because he can. And maybe that's something he's going to want to do. And I actually think that's going to be an aspect because we get the reveal of Scar at the end. And the actor they cast as Scar, was a very interesting choice because they casted an actor, and let me find him again. There he is. Will Deusner, Deusner. He played the Wizard's kid on Stargirl. So he's a little tiny kid. Not tiny. I mean, I'm sure he's fully formed, but he's a shorter kid. He's a thinner kid. He was a kid who was supposed to be the nerdy, friendly magic kid. He was the kid. He did magic. He was a nerd, and he was friends with all the other nerds in the high school. And I think they're going to actually deal with, when we get to that Hulk movie, whatever it is. I don't know if it's going to be called World War Hulk, if it's going to be called Planet Hulk, if it's going to be called whatever. But I think the real conversation is going to be between Bruce Banner and Scar's other half. Because Scar also did have a really horrific childhood because, the actual origin of Scar is the reason he doesn't know about his kid is because his wife died, but because of the old strong power, she forms a cocoon around him that gestates him of rock, and then he comes out of it. And then he grows up real fast, and there's a whole thing. There's also a twin of his who is, again, more like that. I forget what his name was, but he's sort of like an evil version, because he becomes sort of like the super intellectual leader kind of character.
So they both came out of the rock? They were twins?
I guess so. Honestly, it's a little confusing. The entire World War Hulk storyline.
I bet you could make a whole movie about them fighting in the womb.
Yeah. There's a lot of possibilities of what they're going to do. And to be fair, I think that's where they might go with it. But that was I remember because Scar, he's a fighter, but the other kid was more tactical and was just looking for bigger conquests. And I think after Scar leaves, I believe he does conquer Scar again, or Sakaar again, and then goes off and fights Galactus and has his own adventures as well. Creates a cult, I think. But yeah, these are amazing characters, and I think they're going to explore them later. Or they're going to just merge the two characters into the two forms of Scar and whoever he is when he isn't Scar. Like Big Scar and Little Scar, if you will.
Yeah, I wonder if you're born as a Hulk if you have a human form. Or if when you get really angry, you turn human.
Well, the idea is that he has this form, but he also has another form that is more in line with his mother, who was this gray alien who had tectonic powers.
Right, so he wouldn't even turn into a human. He would turn into something else.
Yeah, what he would turn into? Well, it's a gray humanoid. Yeah.
Wow.
But the gray humanoids have the old power, which is the power to control basically the earth elementals. The earthbenders. And so, yeah. useful power, quite frankly. And you combine that with a Hulk, you actually create something that's arguably a little more stronger than a Hulk. And
when he does the Hulk smash, he can actually control the Earth and contort it to.
Yeah. Although, again, the Hulks seem to have some tectonic powers there, too, because they can focus their shockwaves. Which is interesting, because arguably you shouldn't be able to do that in the way that they do, but they do because they're Hulks. So it's, it's neat. But anyway, so I think that is something that we'll get to when we get to that Hulk movie. I think it's going to be a really good thing, and I'm really excited about it now. And I definitely think they've built this out. So I think we're going to get Professor Hulk for a little while longer until his son starts to go off the rails. I actually think it's going to be this situation where you're going to get this villainous maestro turn for Professor Hulk. And it is going to be about him going more and more into this way, and then Scar and the Young Avengers have to sort of reel him back in, but yeah, it's a lot.
I wonder if the errand he had to run to was Scar was fighting in school and he had to go pick the kid up because he was being bad.
It's entirely possible. Although that would imply he knew about Scar. And I kind of felt like he didn't know about Scar, but I think it was just like, I think the idea is that basically the World War Hulk story happened off screen, and it's Scar rising on Sakaar, taking it over. And so, where is my father? And all that kind of thing. We'll have to see what happens. We actually did not even talk about Kevin in this.
Yes, fine.
Because this is actually the big thing. So after the big fight, this is during the big fight. Before we even get to Scar, who's born in Sakaar, it's always hard. You got to keep those separate. Jen basically breaks the fourth wall, but in a TV version. Because what literally happens is, as this fight is happening, as Titania breaks in, and everyone's like, why is Titania here? And she looks at everything, it's so chaotic, and says, why is this what you want? And then, and this is what's important, is the screen goes to whoever was watching jumped out because the story got too out there. It was no longer working for them. And so what effectively happens is when that happens, she punches through the fourth wall in the same way that she would when she would step across panels or even tear the comic book page in the John Byrne run, and then jumps through the space to, grabs onto the panels to jump into the Marvel Assembled, which arguably is probably Assembled She-Hulk except they can't be because that's not there yet. So, which goes to show as comically aware as she is, she actually isn't comically aware at all because she's still being controlled by something outside of that even Kevin in this is a character in the story. So, she walks across the Disney lot. She goes to the writer's room. A lot of fun, a lot of wackiness in that. And she demands to see Kevin. And the one writer, who actually isn't the actual writer, but is supposed to be, I think it's the actual, the character who's called Ham Guy in this scene, who is, one second, let me just find him here.
Which one was he? The Ham Guy?
Ham Guy was no, sorry.
The Asian guy?
No, it was, was he? Wow, okay, there's a lot of people with the last name Ham. There we go, Ham Guy, Michael Zeb Wells. Michael Zeb Wells is one of the primary creatives on this, along with Jessica Gao. And so writer Jeb was played by Justin Miles, and writer Jessica was by Eden Lee. So Jessica Gao and Michael Zeb Wells are in this, but they're being played, their characters are played by other actors.
Gotcha.
So it's just fun in this. Again, with the super meta aspect of it. But they're the people that sort of have created this, but writer Zeb basically says, I would die to protect, or actually, I think he says, I would kill you to protect Kevin. Which is a little disturbing. I have to be honest with you.
I think it is an interesting critique on studios' reliance on market research and screen testing and over testing things, and not believing in an artistic vision, but rather what they think the clicks will react to.
I mean, I think that's absolutely what they were criticizing.
Right.
Or even more to the point, even saying that that's a part of us, but it's not the whole of us.
Right.
I do like
also
that.
kind of saying you let democracy run amok and they'll let a cartoon into the office.
Well, it's, I believe, that, eventually, the American people will, elect someone just as stupid as themselves. But you know what? I'd rather, I'd say that, but then we had Trump. So, yeah, but then again, like, you can look at the mathematics of it. You can say we could probably fix this with a patch. Like, I see where the math failed.
Yeah.
Let's try and fix the math. Because, like, right now, it's not actually a democracy anymore. Now it's like, oh, okay, so now we actually have overrepresentation of certain people. And that's actually causing the problems. That's causing the problems in the system. We can fix it with a patch. We just need a constitutional electoral college patch, and that will solve our problems. Go to something a little more direct democracy. Gotta believe in the core source code of the product. Yeah,
tough, man.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that is the idea that is at the core of all of this, is that you have to tell the stories. What the story's core was, not necessarily what the story was written as. Because that's the idea. And where it actually ties greatly back to the original Bill Bixby Hulk, which is, as an adaptation, an adaptation in name only. It is the Hulk, in the sense that there is a character of superhuman strength who's green, due to the work of scientist Bruce Banner, David Banner in this case, but all of the other aspects of it are completely fabricated new. There's no Jack McGee chasing him. There's not even a military response against this Hulk. He's just another cryptid as far as most people are concerned. And in this story, that 70s Hulk story got the essence of what the Hulk was, which was this person with this other half who's on the run, who wants to be good and has this superpower that they can't control, but that always seems to be pointable towards heroic action, even though in and of itself, it is actually dangerous. So, it's a very interesting take, and that's the essence of the Hulk. That's what the series had, and that's what these shows have. That's what they bring to it,
Well, she does.
She does, yeah. Well, she is the essence of She-Hulk, and She-Hulk isn't any one of her stories. It's all of her stories, and all of her stories are Jen working through being a Hulk. So, anyway, but yeah, so she gets to meet Kevin, the knowledge enhanced information nexus, or knowledge enhanced. What does the V stand for? I forgot. Anyway, virtual information nexus. That's it. Knowledge enhanced virtual information nexus, which is the creature or the being that drives the MCU based on what all the stories are. And you see that it is reading all the books, then it reformulates them into a way that people want. And then it, moves forward, and she makes the point that some of these plot beats are repetitive, and this is, these are things
because if we always just did what we want, we would all be unhealthy and have diabetes. You can't just always get what you want. You know what I mean? So somebody's got to be watching that, because if you let the algorithm run amok, it will only give us what we want, and what we want isn't always good for us all the time.
Although if you had a smart enough algorithm, it probably could.
Yeah, right. But I don't think,
and that's why we live in a matrix, because we don't
always, right now only meant to monetize as many clicks as they can, and they're giving us exactly what we want. Every drug, every bit of sugar, every sweet thing that we could possibly want, and just shoving it down our gullet.
Yeah, I agree, sir. But I do like the Kevin design. They even give him the little hat. And it was funny because I guess, and I get this. It's like Kevin didn't want to be on screen as a character because first off, he isn't. Brendan Tartikoff used to love to do that on NBC back in the day, where he'd just show up as Brendan Tartikoff. And, he's a funny guy, but he wasn't that good of an actor. So it's like every time Lorne Michaels comes on to Saturday Night Live, he just, he very funny guy, I'm sure, but, quite frankly, he's just the stiff thing. And I know that Kevin Feige would be the same way. Yeah. He's not an actor. He's a creative. He knows that. And he says, I don't want to be in this as Kevin, but what can we play with in this? And let's, right. Or actually, I think what he said was, if you get John Hamm to do it, maybe. Or that, well, actually, that was the idea. Is like, no, you can have a person playing Kevin, but it's not going to be me. I would recommend John Hamm. Because everyone thinks John Hamm is beautiful. And he's a nice looking man. I'm not going to argue. But, at least that's the rumor in the mill. But they went with the robot, which I thought was actually the better choice. Because it definitely gives this idea that there's this feeling of this formulaic process and this idea that there are these story beats you have to have. And I'm sure that in the writer's room, because not for nothing, we get a lot in writer's rooms nowadays in a lot of intellectual comedy, which is always about, weirdly enough, how there are these story beats and these story wheels and these story trains and these things you have to do in a story. But at the same time, it's also always about the writer saying, but what if we didn't? What if we did something different? And one thing that I think is actually a specific call out in this is she makes the point that why is this at night? This should be in the daytime. This has always been my argument that that's the difference between MCU films and DC films. MCU films always have their fights in the daytime. That you never see a nighttime fight in the MCU because everyone's asleep. Like the one time we actually had a nighttime fight was when aliens invaded and they attacked the Vision.
In the beginning of Black Panther, there's a nighttime fight scene, and then when Captain America fights Batroc on the ship, that's during night.
Although they had floodlights on the ship,
huh?
They have floodlights on the ship, so on the ship that was well lit.
Fair enough.
That, but the idea was,
I appreciate that. You don't want to end up with like episode 8 of the final season of Game of Thrones, where you filmed this $30 million battle scene that nobody can see because you made it so dark. It's like, I appreciate that as a fan. I want to see the cool stuff. That's why we're here. We can put all the bells and whistles and philosophy and everything around it. But I came to a superhero movie to see some cool stuff. Let me see it.
Exactly. And that's what we get there. Although they have had a few darkened hallway fights because they had Daredevil. So that's his motif, Daredevil needs a darkened hallway. That's how he does it. And quite frankly, the hall fight in the dark, that's a staple of certain things. But to act like that is the whole of the MCU is clearly wrong if you actually watch all the films. And that's always been my statement. So I think her complaint that it's too dark, which it wasn't because it was indoor at night, but just to have it in the daytime, have it earlier in the day, because not for nothing, all the people need to be there too. Right. But she takes away Todd's powers because she feels that the blood plot, it's been done to death, and arguably it has. I still would have liked the Hulk Todd, and I do like the idea, but at the same time, it's fine that it's not another piece on the board that now we have to deal with forever.
Right.
That, and like I said, I would much rather see him be a character like the Grey Gargoyle. I would love that. I think would be and really thinking about that actor and the character of the Grey Gargoyle, I think that is actually perfect. So throwing that out there. Someone wants to give John Bass, bring him back, have him be Todd, but have him be a reimagined Grey Gargoyle. And I want to make sure because there's one gargoyle who turns people to stone, and then there's another one. You know, maybe. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm mistaken here. The gray gargoyle is the guy who turns people to stone. The gargoyle, no, the gremlin. Oh my gosh, I completely screwed it up. The gremlin. I want to say that's his name. The gremlin is the guy. He eventually goes inside a Titanium Man armor. Let me just double check this real quick. No. Okay. Let's see you. Gargoyle.
I would be perfectly fine with him just being expendable and that being the last we ever hear from him.
Yeah. I mean, that's also good too. Yeah. Okay, here we go. That's the, yeah, I think there's several characters called the Gargoyle. There's the actual Gargoyle, there's the Grey Gargoyle, and then there is the Hulk villain, the Gargoyle. So, okay. So it is the Gargoyle, not the Grey Gargoyle. Anyway, but yeah, if they don't bring him back, that's fine too. I'm not going to worry about it. John Bass is going to get a lot of work. He's a very talented and fine actor, and I'm glad to see him here.
Very easy to hate face.
He does, but if you ever watch Miracle Workers, he can play a really lovable. He can play a lovable sad sack too. Because that's like the whole premise of the first season of Miracle Workers is he's just a really sad sack. Ugh. And he has to fall in love, So they have two sad sack characters that they have to make fall in love, and and if they make them fall in love, then that saves the world. Wow. Miracle Workers is a great show with that kid from Harry Potter. It's really enjoyable. Huh. Anyway, moving right along.
I think that's season 2.
I'm excited for season 2 too. I mean, there's people who say that season 2 is a done deal when they're in the writers. I'm sorry.
I hope so.
Yeah, when they're in the writers' room, it is actually them working on the premises for season 2, and so speaking it into existence. Jessica Gao, however, says, "Don't ask me when I'm going to have kids again just after I just gave birth." Just like, don't say, "Well, when do we get season 2?" It's like, this was a lot of work doing season 1. Let's take a breath.
Yeah.
Let's see what the algorithm says. Anyway. Okay. All right, Mozz. If people like these shows, like our shows, even when we go a bit long, because it's the final episode, people. We got a lot to talk about. They can write to us at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. Or call us at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES, where they can leave a voicemail, which we will play on the air if you have something interesting to say and you don't say a dirty word. Likewise, go down to Linktree, linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. That's all one word, all spelled out, where you can get all of our wonderful merch, t-shirts, aluminium mugs that keep your cold side cold and your hot side hot all night long. And, of course, you can subscribe to our Patreon, give us a little bit of money, help us keep this show on the air. And that's it. And, Mozz, if someone wants to talk to you personally, not get involved in the whole corporate complex of Capes and Lunatics, but just want to slip into your personal DMs, how can they do so?
Oh, they can reach me directly at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way our mothers and fathers once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, which is... Yeah, it's all one word. It is coming, but Superconnectivity is coming back in November as a rotating show, so please watch for it. The Return. And, of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet things like Stargirl Wednesday nights on the CW at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, dear friends. All right, me hearties. You have come to the end of another episode of Full Stream Ahead. Come back again next week as we once again sail the bounding main and see all the internet has to offer on Full Stream Ahead. Arr.